Hey y'all, I wanted to talk about something that I saw yesterday, and it was a clip of a woman named Leigh McGowan. Maybe it's Leigh McGowan, I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I'm getting that wrong either way. But she was putting her rhetorical foot in the ass of a guy named Scott Jennings on CNN. Jennings had made a really shitty comment about the Epstein files and about the fact that the administration is a month past a deadline that was given to them by a court to release those files. And McGowan very rightly got very upset and did a good job of putting him in his place. And I want to kind of talk about why that clip is so satisfying in part. And then I kind of want to talk about our responsibility and our participation in the situation that leads to that. And because we're talking about the Epstein files, what we're talking about is a really shocking level of violation and abuse, right? And it brings up another kind of comparison in a way, right? And that is kind of domestic violence, right? So when I was growing up, I'm almost 50. So when I was growing up, it was not unusual for entire communities to know that there was domestic violence happening in a house, in a place. So everybody would know in that house over there, that child is abused, right? And sometimes it wasn't a child, sometimes it was spousal abuse. And a lot of times it was more than one house, right? It was that house over there has a kid who's abused, that house over there has a spouse who's abused. And it was an open secret. Everybody knew, but everybody kind of acted like they didn't know, you know? I acted like they didn't know that was happening. But they also had you always had like a language, a way to communicate. They're like, oh, I'm in on the secret. Oh, I know about that. I know about that. Right? It wasn't something that was new to you. And and we've really kind of set up a very similar kind of dynamic in our country. And what happens with that dynamic, right? You have like reality. And that reality is somebody is being abused. And then there's the parallel reality that we all kind of perform, right? We all kind of act like that's real. It's not. Like we know somebody's being abused, right? We all knew that, right? People knew. And then there's the space in between. And in that space in between, what happens is that we become implicated in that because we don't take action. We don't do anything to stop that abuse. And so that person who is that violator, that abuser, they get to continue that violation. They get to continue that abuse because nobody intercedes. Nobody steps in, and there's different reasons that happens, but none of them are really good enough to explain that it does continue. And hopefully, I don't know many children at this point, but hopefully it's different now than it was then. I know that when I was a kid, that was a very real dynamic that existed, and I know that was true before, in the generations before mine. And we've set up a very similar thing now in the country, and we have to start holding accountable the people who have helped set that dynamic up. And as fulfilling, right, as appealing as it may have been to watch Leigh McGowan do that in that clip, we have to face that all of these major news organizations who have been given the kind of status that they have participated in setting up this open secret dynamic. They are implicated in the abuse that's continuing because they keep letting people like Scott Jennings use their organizations to tell the rest of us we're crazy. They keep using they keep letting people like that tell the rest of us that reality is not reality, right? That the administration is not in Minnesota, LA, Portland, Richmond, Miami, New York, and abusing our rights. They keep telling us that the administration is not violating and threatening the separation of powers through through not meeting that court order. And they keep telling us they're not violating or threatening the separation of powers by attempting to pull the power of the purse away from Congress in the number of different ways they have. And they are going to tell us that the letter that was sent to Denmark's leader yesterday that basically said that because Trump was not given a Nobel, he wants Greenland instead. They're going to tell us that's not completely insane. And so what that means is we now have that dynamic, yes, where we know the truth. And at this point, it's actually us, the people, the citizenry, the people who live in the country, who are being abused, right? Our rights are under significant threat. Many people's are just being outright violated. And these organizations, these press organizations, these news organizations are continuing to act as if it's possible that's not reality. And it's that space in between the reality and this parallel reality that gets set up when you have this open secret dynamic happening. It's in between there that not only are they implicated, right? Not only are these news organizations implicated, right? They're collaborating with this fascist movement in creating this dynamic and creating this setup. But it's also in that place in between that we are losing. And it's because of that space in between that they are able to keep doing this. Right? The administration, this fascist movement are able to continue doing this because all of these institutions, all of these organizations are conferring some degree of legitimacy on them by just allowing them to keep coming back and telling lies. And so I know that up to now, the argument has been, how is it that the population is going to be informed? How is it the people are going to be informed? The outlets like New York Times, Washington Post, The Atlantic, The argument is they have very good reporters who are doing a lot of good work, and they're giving the public information that they need, and they're trying to hold power accountable. And I don't disagree that there are lots of good reporters who are trying to do that in all of these places. I no longer think that the good that they're doing outweighs the harm that this editorial strategy, this editorial outlook, this editorial perspective that continues to allow people to come lie to us, I don't think it measures up. I don't think it weighs out. You understand? It's costing us more, right? To let these people keep lying to us than we are getting from the good reporting that I'm sure very wonderful reporters are trying to do. The damage that's being done by that choice is far worse than the positive that is coming from the reporting. And I think we really have to face that. And that was why, right? It's that thing. It is that open secret dynamic that Leigh McGowan was speaking to. And that was why it felt so good to everybody to see somebody say, how can you do this? How can you act this way? How can you keep treating this like it's not important? Because we all understand that like we're in dire times, dire straits. Like it's bad. But we keep being told by people that these organizations are letting use that legitimacy, that status that we give them. We keep being told by those people using those organizations that what we see is not real. We keep being told that what's happening is not real. And I don't think it works out anymore. I don't think the math works on the positive side of the reporting compared to the negative side of this editorial perspective. So I think we need to really contend with that as a people, because it is our attention that confers to them that legitimacy. It's our attention that then turns around in the cycle, because so many people are giving it attention and so many people are giving it legitimacy that it is then like, oh, well, you have to pay attention to this. You have to listen to these people. And at this point, like, when do we let them stop lying to us? When do we remove our consent from this dynamic? When do we stop participating in the open secret? Right? Because it's implicating us as well now. At this point, we are being implicated in our own abuse. And so it's time that we start thinking about this differently. And I know that I've talked about this before. It's probably not going to be the last time I'm going to talk about it, because it's incredibly important. It is incredibly important to the fascist project that they are able to keep doing this. It is one of the main avenues that has allowed them to get where they are. And we need to get hip to that as a people. And we need to stop participating in it. We need to stop giving it to them. Yes, we are going to have to figure something else out. We're going to have to figure out what other way we're going to make sure that people are informed about what it is that's happening in the country and what it is that people in power are doing. But this is not working. No matter how good the reporting is, it's still not working. we are where we are. It's failing. So we have to do something different. And we have to start treating, if they are unwilling to remove these people, if they are unwilling to stop letting people lie to us and lie to the public, then we have to start treating them as collaborators.